Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy here, for Nerds, by Nerds, hanging out with the full crew today.
I'm Ryan.
Ted.
Me.
And we are going to be doing a GM 911 from Dalen, but before we
Dalen,
before we get to our normally scheduled programming, there is the little matter of, down in the description below, there is the link to Nerdarchy, the newsletter. So if you guys want to get tips and tricks from us, in addition to stay up to date with what we're doing,
or learning about secret projects,
or keeping up to date with everything that's going on, that's the best place to do it. And we're also going to start gaming with you guys. Hopefully very soon. I think we probably schedule something, get something going for November. Hopefully,
cool.
We want to make that happen. But anyway, that's where you do that. But back to our GM 911 from Dalen. So he's 40. Just got into the hobby from playing video games. This goes back to actually one of our other videos that we did way back. And he has a pack of kids that he's running D&D 5th edition for. And here's his problem. He's really digging on the campaign module books that have been coming out from Wizards of the Coast, and he actually wants to run the same players with the same characters through them all. The big problem here is each one is basically a campaign setting book. I mean, not a campaign setting book, but a campaign arc.
Yeah.
And they're designed to take characters from 1 through 15. Can this be done? Yes. Is it going to be a lot of work? Yeah, it is, because you're going to have to go
progressively level everything up that much more to be able to be a threat,
or add more monsters. You're going to have to jack up the treasure in order to make it comparable.
You have to jack up the threat level.
Well, if the first one takes you from 1 to 15, and you get into the second one, you could scale things down on the first one, so that they get through 1 to 12, and then take the second story, jack those up, and take them 12 to 20.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too. Good point, Ted. You can actually scale back
what you're giving out as far as treasure goes, and
in the first campaign, in order to make the second campaign more of a challenge.
So there was a question of whether his players are going to even want to stay with the same characters, because...
Well, no, he says they do want to.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
And he says in the one campaign, the item that's given out, I don't know where he is progression-wise, whether they've already played through, but you get a legendary item and it's supposed to be really powerful, so if it's an end result treasure item, it's useless to the story, but if you're taking those characters on to another campaign, that can be, unbalancing, and he doesn't want to have it, where, oh, well, this only works in certain areas, or, you enter this zone here and you can't use this really cool item that your character really likes, or, so...
I would probably do it with the legendary item that it's just, maybe you have to figure out things about it, so maybe, keep some of its powers locked. Unless they're integral to the story.
Right.
You could just kind of they could have the item and it's almost like a leveled thing where they'll find out different different abilities of it as they progress.
It's not bad.
Or somebody else has a claim on it and they have to give it over to the people.
Yeah,
it could be a story thing where so you kind of go off book a little bit and but this goes to this lineage, it's somebody's ancestral sword that now are in the possession.
And maybe you can get a boon from that.
Yeah.
Right.
By exchanging it.
Now, one of the things I will say is 5th edition, more so than any other edition, is so much easier to continue using the encounters and monsters from early levels,
because everything's still threatening because of bounded accuracy and ACs being pretty low arc.
So it still will come into play. Monsters don't become irrelevant the way they have in previous editions, and you can still have fun with it. If there's 5 orcs, you could make it 10 orcs. And it'll
they're still threatening, because your chances of rolling a 19 or 20, when you're rolling 10 times, are pretty darn high. In fact, in an encounter, I had back-to-back with routines of attacks, 2 natural 20s, on characters. So the random dumb luck of the dice, man.
You don't even. I don't feel like you need 19s and 20s.
Well, no, you certainly don't. But I'm just saying, even if they're super high level in comparison to what the level of the monster, or say it's a CR1 or a half or whatever, rolling a natural 20 is still a hit, and it's still going to hurt because it's going to be double damage.
Right. You could also exclude some magic items, don't give out magic armor and shield. Don't give them defensive items. Give them something else instead, so that the armor class doesn't quite get as jacked as high, so you might have a 20 armor class instead of a 23.
You're talking about the scope of the entire game only really has like a spread of like 16 points. 17 if you want to get into some of the really crappy monsters, but like a zombie only has an 8 and a Tarrasqua's like a 25, so like that's your gamut, that's your range. And with a player, the worst armor class you can start with is a 9, and the best armor class you can start with is an 18. So if your 18 is only ever going to go up to a 21, 22, maybe a little bit higher if everything you have is magical, your armor class, as Ryan said, is going to be low, and orcs can be a challenge. They might not drop in a single hit, so they can be a threat. And I ran a game this weekend where I had 4 level 2 characters versus a single skeleton and a single zombie, 2 things that are a quarter CR each.
And he killed the whole party. All of them.
I didn't kill all of them, but I dropped one of the players, and the zombie didn't want to die.
Like that went in a completely different direction.
Yeah. So like, wow, this is really crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, another thing you could do too. So kind of, 4th edition had minions, right? So say in your early goings of these campaign books, that you're essentially fighting low CR monsters that most of them are going to drop in your standard one hit, especially if you're a higher
just
level.
minionize them.
Well, what you could do is you could either give them more, or like maybe just kind of like, unless somebody crits them or does an enormous amount of damage, like it's going to take 2 hits to drop each one of these. It doesn't, the number of hit points is actually irrelevant. They have to be hit twice, and this way they'll have some longevity, have some ability to affect the combat against the players. You can increase the numbers. Another thing you could do is give them a better tactical advantage. Like maybe with being numbers, there's some that are like in a shooting gallery, they're able to shoot down on the players and they have to get to them, but there's guys on the ground, so they have to deal with first.
While they're being shot at.
While they're being shot at. So tactics to crap out against your party.
Another thing is add spellcasters that buff. Like in the orc scenario, you have orcs, and then you have an orc shaman that casts Bless, that casts Hex, debuffing the party while buffing their own.
Except for you can't. I don't think. Well,
are they both concentration?
2 orc shamans. Whatever.
2 orc shamans.
Sure. One orc shaman, one orc warlock. There you go.
Yeah.
But so adding spellcasters, it adds a complexity to the combat. The regular guys are harder without having magic weapons or weird things going on.
Essentially, there's no loot that adds to the creep.
Yeah. The other thing too is just cut out sections of the module that aren't relevant. Like if you can do it without it, and you feel like it's not going to add to the story. Yeah, you just pull things out. You can change things up. I mean, you could even like mix and match the modules as you go, and actually swing back and forth between different campaign stories. Depending on how they weave and where they're at and where they're located. So you could basically create this whole different experience. And if you're doing it from early level, it would be a way to integrate the same challenge level encounters throughout the stories. And then and then again, I would just remove stuff that you don't need.
Another thing about removing, let's say there's a low level combat. Ryan had a 2-shot encounter yesterday at the Geek Fest, and one was goblins attack, and really the goblins attacking, a baby gets stolen. All right, well, really you could just hear rumors about a baby getting stolen. You don't have to have that first goblin combat. If it's going to, you can chop out an entire fight encounter. Yeah. That doesn't really matter to the players, because they're just going to stomp those goblins at whatever level they are, because they're coming from Princess of Apocalypse. So, like you're saying, cut out unnecessary encounters, but you can still include the information. So you guys can now go.
They're dealing with the aftermath of this.
Yeah, they're like, we heard a rumor a child was stolen, or they're like asked as heroes of the town or heroes of the area to deal with some kind of threat that might have been 2 or 3 encounters to lead up to that main one, and they're just going to deal with the main one because some other guys took care of the mini thing.
Well, you know what? I mean, even too, you could just narrate past. You could say, like, yeah, you dealt with this problem because it was barely consequential to you, but here's what happened, the aftermath. Like, the combats that's literally just going to be a dice rolling grind that the players are just going to ultimately walk through the combat.
You could narrate it.
You could just, like, say, yeah, this is what you guys, this is how it went. But
and you could totally, highlight the positive. Okay, the fighter or the paladin sheathed in all this, metal armor. The goblins run up and they swing their crappy swords and rudimentary clubs at your armor, and it just deflects off, and you come in with a mighty swath, slaying 3 of them with a single hit. You can do this kind of very descriptive, very cool, and clearly overpowered situation that makes them feel so mighty that when they actually get into a fight, it's like, holy crap, what happened? These guys are jacked up now.
Well, there's like 5 goblins, and you're like, what do you do to them?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. You could let them describe it.
Yeah, and let them narrate.
If they wanted to, you take the rest of your voice and let them go at it. So there was another point that I wanted to bring up, and that was, okay, so again, like Dalen, what is it you're after? Is it that you actually want to run these stories from beginning to end, or do you want to use the material? Because you don't actually have to run these campaign arcs to use the material. You can just pull them apart and use what you want to use, later on. So that's also another option. Because let's face it, each one of them is designed to be a story arc unto itself. So it's going to be a lot of work to run one after another with the players that have gone through them all. Can it be done? Yes.
But by the end of the second one, you're probably talking about players that are going to have like epic level boons.
Yeah. You're going to 20th level.
Plus,
I can imagine a whole bunch of sticky notes in the second book of like, reduce this encounter to a rumor that they find out about. Double the amount of orcs here.
There's 3 dragons instead of 2.
Imagine what the third one is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
By the third book. Well, I mean, so you're talking about probably over 20th level characters, so they're getting the epic level boons, and so like now they're like chosen of the gods sort of situation.
Yeah.
Which, so toward the end of I haven't read it yet, but Rage of Demons, like you're dealing with threats from the abyss, so it could be that like whole celestial powers do choose you to go deal with that threat. Either that or you just jump to the end. You're like, we're just gonna skip this other stuff and just put the smackdown on Tiamat. Yeah.
So there are definitely some issues, and you're gonna have to do a lot of work to do it. And so essentially, the most important thing is to figure out what it is that you actually want from all these books. Is it that you bought them and you just want to use them? You can probably get away with 2, but 3 would be really tough. Or are you okay with just piecemealing the books apart, running one from beginning to end, and taking the other ones and just use them as resource materials?
Yeah, like you decide what the ultimate end state of the story is versus like the thing that's pre-programmed into the module of the campaign.
I mean, I feel like too we have to upend this too with the caveat that Nerdarchy as a whole generally runs homebrew, and we don't use modules. I mean, I've taken stuff from them and used them. But for the most part, we don't run modules whole cloth. If that's what you're doing, that's fine.
It's outside of our experience.
Yeah. Just disclaimer to let you guys know that that's not generally how we run our games. But these ways you can definitely do. Because this works no matter whether you're using a pre-planned adventure or you're making up your own. You can always adjust things, move them up, move them down. In this case, you probably have to do both: move it down, move it up. Move it down on the first one, move it up on the second one, and then you can decide on all the books as a whole. Do you really need to run the whole story arc for everything, or is your motivation something different? Like you got these books and you just want to use them, or maybe there's elements from the other ones you want to use.
Yeah, I mean, part of it might just be getting the maximum entertainment value. Like you have this $50 book or whatever, and just you sapping all the entertainment value out of that, like the number of sessions it's going to take to complete this whole story arc.
Right, and the point that I want to make is there's other ways of doing than just running it straight through. Like you could literally go back to that book over and over again to pull out encounters and ideas.
Right. So if you guys want to chime in on this discussion, put it in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, even subscribe.
You can check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
You can hang out with us over on Facebook for funny memes.
And you can patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
So until next time, stay nerdy.
From 1 through 15. Can this be done? Yes. Is it going to be a lot of work? Yeah, it is, because you're going to have to go
Progressively level everything up that much more to be able to be a threat,
or add more more monsters. You're going to have to jack up the treasure in order to make it comparable.
You have to jack up the threat level.
Well, if the first one takes you from 1 to 15, and you get into the second one, you could scale things down on the first one, so that they get through 1 to 12, and then take the second story, jack those up, and take them like 12 to 20.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too. Good point, Ted. You can actually scale back
what you're giving out as far as treasure goes, and
in the first campaign, in order to make the second campaign more of a challenge.
So there was a question of whether his players are going to even want to stay with the same characters, because...
Well, no, he says they do want to.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
And he says in the one campaign, the item that's given out, I don't know where he is progression-wise, whether they've already played through.
Us, in addition to stay up to date with what we're doing.
Or learning about secret projects.
Or keeping up to date with everything that's going on. That's the best place to do it. And we're also going to start gaming with you guys. Hopefully very soon. I think we probably schedule something, get something going for November. Hopefully,
cool.
We want to make that happen. But anyway, that's where you do that. But back to our GM 911 from Dallin. So he's 40. Just got into the hobby from playing video games. This goes back to actually one of our other videos. Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy here, for Nerds, by Nerds, hanging out with the full crew today.
I'm Ryan.
Ted.
Me.
And we are going to be doing a GM 911 from Dallin, but before we get to our normally scheduled programming, there is the little matter of, down in the description below, there is the link to Nerdarchy, the newsletter. So if you guys want to get tips and tricks from our videos that we did way back, and he has a pack of kids that he's running D&D 5th edition for. And here's his problem. He's really digging on the campaign module books that have been coming out from Wizards of the Coast. And he actually wants to run the same players with the same characters through them all. The big problem here is each one is basically a campaign setting book. I mean, not a campaign setting book, but a campaign arc.
Yeah.
And they're designed to take characters